My name is Florence Hudson. I'm the executive director for the Northeast Big Data Innovation Hub, which is headquartered at Columbia University in New York City in New York in the USA. I don't know where everybody's calling in from. And the Northeast Big Data Innovation Hub is funded by the U.S. National Science Foundation, as well as some funding from the U.S. National Institutes of Health, and I'll tell you more about that. I'm also founder and CEO of a consulting firm, a global consulting firm called FD Hint, which stands for Florence D. Hudson International. And I do consulting on advanced technologies and diversity and inclusion. So we're going to be talking about learning and leveraging data science and advanced technologies for success. And I've been working with advanced technologies for many years. A little bit about me. Um, I chair the but beyond the work I do at Columbia with NSF and NIH, and as founder and CEO of my company, I also chair a standards working group with IEEE. And for those of you who aren't familiar with IEEE, it's the Institute for Electrical and Electronics Engineers. And we create a lot of standards, 802.11 for Wi-Fi and all sorts of standards. So I'm working with IEEE and Underwriters Laboratories and chairing a working group on clinical Internet of Things data and device interoperability with TIPPSS. And TIPPSS is something I'll talk about today. With the increasing leverage of technology connected to humans these days, not just technology to help and protect enterprises and governments and infrastructure, we need to really focus on trust, identity, privacy, protection, safety, and security of the data, the devices, and the humans. And so we're actually developing a standard on this. I'll be speaking about it at HIMSS for any of you in the healthcare space, which is the Healthcare Information Management System Society, in April in Chicago. If you're there, come by and see us. And we'll be talking about this standard and how important it is in healthcare, but longitudinally in other areas, including smart cities, infrastructure. I recently spoke to NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, about it, about bringing this forward into autonomous vehicles, smart grid, and smart cities. I also work with the National Cancer Institute on their Computational Approaches for Cancer Program Committee, and we basically look at how to use data and high-performance computing and different algorithmic approaches to learn more about cancer and, God willing, stop it and cure it as much as we can. I do a lot of board work, and I'm a former IBM VP and Chief Technology Officer, at Chief Innovation Officer, Internet2, which is a research education network. I was a special advisor for the NS Cybersecurity Center of Excellence, and I worked on cybersecurity research transition to practice. I actually just spoke at an event on that Friday. And I'm an aerospace and mechanical engineer by training, so I worked at NASA at Grumman Aerospace. So I have kind of a varied background, but I've always been at the leading edge of technology. That's what I do, science and technology. And it's really a lot of fun. So let me give you a little bit of a broad range of what we focus on first, and then I'll go deeper into some of the focus areas. So the Northeast Big Data Innovation Hub was initially funded by the U.S. National Science Foundation in 2015. You can see the grants here, and the way the NSF numbers work is the first two digits are the year that it was awarded. So in 2015, we got our first award. We got one for cybersecurity in 2017, another one for the whole hub in 2019. And then I run the COVID Information Commons as well, which we got awards in 2020 and 2021. And we also work on an NIH program called AIM Ahead, which is artificial intelligence and machine learning to advance health equity and researcher diversity. So we're very focused on, as you can see in our focus areas here, education and data literacy, helping people learn about data science and figure out how to use it. We're very focused in health. You heard us talk about COVID and the cancer work that we're doing, urban to rural communities, and responsible data science, including security, privacy, and ethics. Whatever system you're putting in, whatever SaaS system you're using, whatever data you're using, whatever algorithms, you really have to worry about security of the data, privacy of the information and the human information, and the ethics of how you're doing your work. So as the Northeast Hub, we have these focus areas, and we're all about being a community convener, a collaboration hub, and a catalyst for data science innovation to address these areas. We build a diverse, equitable, and inclusive community. It's very central to our work, especially as you look at data science ethics. You need everybody's point of view looking at a problem and deciding how to address it, what data to use, what data not to use, what do your algorithms do, what should they do. This is all very important, and so all of this is very integrated. The hub, since it was born in 2015, so we had 0 people then, has grown to over 7,000 humans, the community, and about 1,300 different organizations in all 50 US states and 48 countries, and we continue to grow. And everybody's welcome to become a member of the Hub. You could go to the Hub website and sign up for our newsletter and keep involved, listen to our webinars, read our stuff offline, asynchronously. And so, what I'm going to talk about today is some of the very important areas that I see in the leverage of advanced technologies for good. And they fall into these 4 focus areas I mentioned. I'm going to talk about our National Student Data Core, which we launched in 2021. And since then, we have actually attracted over 3,400 students from around the world that are leveraging our open online data science education information, as well as educators. We provide a Learner Central for learners to learn data science online asynchronously for free, and actually materials for educators who want to learn how to teach data science. We'll talk about the COVID Information Commons. I'll talk a little bit about a data science resource depository we have, and some of the cybersecurity work that we have going on. So first, what if you wanted to learn data science? Why should you? Well, because everybody should know how to use data for good. They should know what the data is saying and what it's not saying. You can make decisions about your business. You can learn more about your clients. You can learn more about the market. And you can actually help people develop new skills. So we launched this National Student Data Core in 2021 as a community developed initiative. We actually launched it as a Northeast Student Data Course since we're the Northeast Hub, and before long it was global and across the whole country, so we renamed it to national. And what we do is we provide resources and opportunities for students of all ages. Don't just think, someone in middle school or someone in college. We have people who are serial entrepreneurs who say, I really want to get into this data science thing, and I have to really understand what the data says about my business. And they'll come and ask for a mentor. They'll listen to our data science career panels. They'll get into the mentoring Slack channel. So we help people learn how to use data. We even have moms of middle school students, like 12-year-olds that come and learn about it to get their kids involved in it, and a lot of college students. And we have a special focus on underserved institutions, students, and communities, people that don't have access to data science education, either because they can't afford to go to school right now, their school doesn't have a data science program, whatever it is. But it's really for everybody. So when we first had this idea, we did a call for participation in a founding committee, and we had over 20 people say they wanted to help, to volunteer. And we created these 3 teams: a content and pedagogy team. And we have people in here from academic institutions. We have Princeton, we have University of Scranton, we have Queensborough Community College, which is part of the City University of New York and a minority serving institution. We also have Andre Duval, who is from IBM, and he runs the IBM Open Data Science for All GitHub site and a lot of that curriculum. So we have all these people helping us create the content and the pedagogical view of how to teach data science. We have students that are creating content. We have Meghna and Sanket that actually have been working with us, and Benji and Haley and a number of others, and Stephanie, Rahul, Lilybell, all these students that are on the peer instructor and mentoring team, or have been. Some of them have graduated now and they're in real jobs, so to speak. But they actually record videos that are then uploaded to the IBM Open Data Science for All GitHub to teach people more about data science. And they also do mentoring. And then we have an outreach team that helps us with our panels and our webinars, and helps us connect to institutions, data, and initiatives that can help us grow data science education. So the NSDC, or National Student Data Core, enables data science literacy around the world. So you can see we have a rather interesting footprint. We have a number of students and people in Africa, in Europe, in India, in Australia, in South America, North America. I think we just don't have, I think we're still missing Antarctica. And so we provide these free online data science resources. We have a Learner Central, which has data science ethics, including data science comic books, believe it or not. Also links to edX classes, online classes to learn data science ethics. We have a getting started area where you can look at Khan Academy material on math and pre-algebra, all the way through introductory to intermediate and intermediate to advanced, including convolutional neural networks, supervised, unsupervised machine learning. And so it's self-paced. People can learn about data science. What is it? We have introductory material, and we have videos that the peer instructor team creates, like 10 to 20-minute videos that doesn't take a lot of your time, but helps you learn more about data science. And they're in our video library. You can see we have intro to data science, very elementary, data acquisition and wrangling, supervised machine learning, all levels. And you can watch these asynchronously in your spare time and learn more about data and data science. We also have Educator Central for people to learn how to teach data science. And we leverage material from Data 8 as an example, from Berkeley, Columbia University, University of Rochester, IBM's Open PTech program, MIT's Missing Semester. So we provide this very nice portal to access data science education information. We also have chapters around the world. One of the students at Temple University suggested that he'd like to create a chapter, so we created a chapter system. We have 18 chapters around the world, plus 4 regional ones in the US. We have 6 in India. In the US, we have ones such as at Scripps, Johns Hopkins, George Mason University, Tufts University, a lot of different schools. We have a Career Central where people could look at job websites, data science career resources, including interview guides. And then we have a Volunteer Central for people who would like to volunteer with the National Student Data Corps. We call it our Real Volunteer Program, which stands for Research Experience and Leadership. And as students or humans or any age learn data science, they'd like to try it, do some research, try a project, and we enable that type of opportunity as well. So if anyone's interested in starting or joining an NSDC chapter, the chapters are mostly in higher education institutions. We're open to having them be, professional chapters or in a city or whatever. So if you want to learn more about that, you can just go to nebigdatahub.org/NSDC and learn more about that. We also have collaborations with a lot of different organizations. I was mentioning we partner with IBM and their Open Data Science for All project and program. We leverage all their content in GitHub and then have students record some of the PowerPoints into videos and make those available through IBM and through our own website. We also partner with another organization that I'm on the editorial board for, Blockchain and Healthcare Today and Telehealth and Medicine Today. And we've launched a call for manuscripts with them. And for people who are academic, student, and research members of the Hub or the National Student Data Corps, you have the opportunity to submit a research manuscript with the article processing charge waived. Industry players can't participate in that. They would pay the article processing charge as you usually do to submit to a journal. And the manuscripts we're looking for would be to address the leverage of data science tools and techniques or blockchain and distributed ledger technologies for healthcare. And so this call for manuscripts is open through December 2023, and we're open to other journals that might like to do a call for manuscripts with us as well. We also have a data science resource repository, which you could go to at nebigdatahub.org/DSRR for data science resource repository. And it's a curated set of over 600 resources for learners, educators, researchers, career explorers. You can find books, you can find networks, you can find classes, you can find articles, you can find all sorts of stuff in here. And we're building the Spanish language resources, a pretty fair part of our community at the Hub and the National Student Data Corps are either from Spanish-speaking countries at Hispanic-serving institutions or related, some type of a Latino background, and they speak Spanish. And so what we're looking to do is provide these resources in English and Spanish. And we actually have a student on our team that we pay who is bilingual English and Spanish. She's a Columbia University student, and she's helping us build up the Spanish resources. If you know of any, please send us an email. We love to work with researchers, professionals, industry professionals, nonprofit. We are a collaboration hub. We help enable public-private collaborations. And what we've been really building with our National Student Data Corps is a large student population that we work with and help them do research and learn data science. So we're having our inaugural Northeast Big Data Hub Student Research Symposium, where the students are the ones presenting, not people like me on this session, but the students. And so we've had multiple challenges for the students to do. We had a data science symposium. We had a COVID Information Commons student paper challenge and a cybersecurity risk conference that we did with students. And the winners are going to be presenting on January 27th, all undergraduate and graduate students that will be presenting their research. And I've done a lot of presenting in my life, and I have to tell you, I've looked at their presentations and they are really good, very impressive. So if you would like to join us, please do. All of what we do is open and free. So that's a lot about what we do about enabling data science awareness, providing data science online free education, mentoring, panels that people can listen to, data science career panels. Now I'll talk a little bit about the health focus area. And as you're probably aware, well, everyone's aware that we've had this COVID pandemic and it's still here, and so COVID is probably going to be something we have with us in our lifetimes, if not beyond our lifetimes. And so there's still a lot of learning to be done about how we mitigate the impacts that it's having on education, on society, and on social determinants of health, on how we keep people safer longer term as new pandemics come forward. What do we do? And so through our COVID Information Commons, we bring together researchers, students, professionals to talk about the research that's being done, that's been funded by the National Science Foundation, the National Institutes of Health. We have over 9,000 COVID-related research awards in the database, and you can view any of them. We also work closely with IEEE, as I mentioned, the Institute for Electronic Engineers. We hosted a global connected healthcare cybersecurity virtual workshop series 2 years ago now, and we continue our collaboration on that. And I'll talk more about that. We also work with researchers that help us look at how to leverage data and data science for health. So there was a project done by Chirag Patel, who's at Harvard, the Exposome Data Warehouse, Tools and Big Data for Mapping Environmental and Disease Disparities. It's been around for a couple of years, and that actually has resulted in a startup called XY.ai. So we nurtured the research and the transition to practice of the research, working with the different organizations and researchers. And we also work in quantum technology and quantum computing. I hosted with Blockchain and Healthcare Today and Telehealth and Medicine Today a fireside chat with one of the researchers that I know who's funded by the National Science Foundation in cybersecurity on quantum technology and techniques for cybersecurity threat in healthcare, which is open online and available on the Blockchain and Healthcare Today website. So what we really do is look at how you learn and leverage advanced technologies to help in these health focus areas. Regarding health and AI and machine learning, there's a lot of focus on how you use it for good, how AI and ML may be misused either on purpose or not on purpose as you're looking to provide better care. And so there's a big and increasing focus on all of that. A little more about some of these initiatives. The COVID Information Commons was initially funded in May of 2020. They called us in March of 2020, which was when the world closed down, as you may recall, and asked us if we could create an open portal that could help people easily find National Science Foundation funded research related to COVID. At the time, I went into the NSF website. There were 32 research awards. I was like, oh, I could do this on my laptop. Fast forward, there are over 9,000 now from NSF and NIH. So we got our initial award to create this database and portal, which became a collaborative and dynamic community. And then they gave us $2 million more in 2021 to extend this COVID Info Commons extension when we expanded beyond the initial 700, then 1,000 NSF awards to add the NIH awards and all the new awards. And we have a community of over 2,500 people from 650 organizations. We communicate with monthly. We do lightning talk webinars. We have those lightning talks on our portal on the website, and we provide English and Spanish transcripts from an accessibility perspective. So for the hard of hearing, they could read the English transcript, and for people who speak Spanish, they can read it in Spanish. We have links to global resources, data sets, groups, guides. And we have the principal investigator or the researchers provide information on their research results, collaboration opportunities, Orchid, which is a an ID that you can use. Some of you may have Orchid IDs. You can get them for free, where people can look at your publications, your educational and professional experience that you populate yourself. So we provide all these ways for people to find each other and find information. Here's a sample of the English and Spanish transcripts that we have. Nora Garza and Gabby, PI and co-PI on a RAPID grant, which is a rapid response grant that NSF gave out. Rapid in, they say, write a proposal and they give you the money very quickly because we were in a pandemic. It was an emergency. And so this was one of the rapids using real life COVID-19 data and quantitative reasoning skills for undergraduate Hispanic STEM students. Very interesting. So we actually have students that help us do these translations into Spanish, which is very valuable. Here's a little more. I was talking about quantum technologies for cybersecurity. In this case, it's in healthcare. And Shantanu Chakraborty, who is a researcher and professor at Washington University in St. Louis. We did this video together, and it's available on YouTube, as you can see here. And it helps us think about learning and preparing for breaches with a preemptive stance, and not just when there's an imminent threat, leveraging quantum. Like any technology, quantum could be used for good or for bad. So it's best to protect yourself and plan ahead so that you can make sure it's being used for good and you're not exposed due to it. Some of the other information, once again, you can leverage asynchronously at this point, was the Connected Healthcare Cybersecurity Workshop series we did with IEEE a couple of years ago. And you can look at all of this online. We have students that wrote breakout summaries. We have online videos. You can see it included global connected healthcare, cybersecurity risks, and a roadmap. Privacy, ethics, and trust in connected healthcare, as we've been talking about ethics and data and device identity, validation, interoperability, integrated systems and connected healthcare, and cybersecurity technology and policy. Because you may have some technology needs. The question is the policy supporting that, and which is going faster. So as you could tell, even though I'm an aerospace engineer, a lot of us have gone into healthcare because there's a lot of opportunity to use data. And as aerospace engineers, it was all about the data. And so a lot of us are going into this space. And one of the areas that I'm focused on is connected healthcare, data and device interoperability, which can enable precision healthcare, where they use more information about you, your environment, your family history. And here you could see connected healthcare devices and data, your IoT devices, whether it's your Apple Watch or your implanted defibrillator, clinical care data provided by your provider or by those devices, environmental data, are there issues with, ppm? Is there a lot of particles in the air and your asthma is, getting worse? Has it gotten worse since you've moved to this certain area with a lot of dust or a lot of sand? Patient lifestyle data and research data. And all of this data can be leveraged to improve insights and potentially outcomes in healthcare. And these advanced technologies are enabling this digital transformation, but they can also increase risk. So IoT, or Internet of Things, blockchain, machine learning and AI, artificial intelligence, augmented reality, virtual reality, extended reality, some other reality, and little data that becomes big data. So all of this can help, but there's risk. So that's the thing that you always have to think about as you deploy a new technology, whether it's a new software system or a new piece of hardware. What's it connected to? What could possibly go wrong? And being an aerospace engineer, we think about that a lot. There have been some terrible things that have happened when devices don't work well up in space. There's not much you can do. There isn't someone to come and maintain it for you. You have to be prepared to handle it. And on these healthcare devices, we really need to protect the humans. So when you look at what could possibly go wrong, insulin pumps can be hacked. This is a friend of mine, Jay Radcliffe, who famously hacked his own insulin pump. He's a cybersecurity researcher. And not just a researcher. He works in, medical device companies. Pacemakers can be hacked. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration, FDA, recalled 465,000 pacemakers due to hacking fears. And they could be exploited with adjacent access at a low skill level. Adjacent access is within 50 feet or, 10 to 15 meters. A lot of people are within that space. If you're on a plane, if you're at a movie, if you're on the street, anywhere. So there's a lot of risk that needs to be considered. So always look at what your risk could be and your risk mitigation plan. So from the healthcare perspective, we must secure connected healthcare devices and data, and enable interoperability while we're protecting devices, data, and humans. So my top concerns, having been in cybersecurity for many years, I first worked with Department of Defense projects when I started as an aerospace engineer at Grumman, and U.S. Navy aircraft and space systems as well. But now what we want to do is look at the humans, and it always comes down to the humans. So my top concerns are connected healthcare devices and data. If they're hacked, they could quickly kill somebody. Connected hospitals, campuses, cities, and vehicles. That could be very dangerous as well. And clinical, scientific, and research device and data integrity. You may have heard or remember that there was a university research facility toward the beginning of the COVID pandemic and the research that they were doing, and somebody hacked into their system and changed the data. That could be very bad because then you're making decisions on poor data. So we need protection regarding the devices, the hardware, the software, and the services. We need to protect, to work on improving the risk from physical health and safety risks, financial risk, reputational harm. We need to combat data theft, improve data integrity, and limit the loss of privacy. And we need to have a defense in-depth strategy. For those of you who are technologists, you think of it as the hardware, the firmware, the software, and the service level. And we need to evolve our policy and culture to expect this extra level of TIPPSS, we call it, trust, identity, privacy, protection, safety, and security. And as you can see, I've been focused on this for quite a number of years. In 2015, I talked about this in a KPMG article, saying they're going to try to hack everything. And I'm most worried about security in healthcare, in cars and moving vehicles, and critical infrastructure. And we need to think about it right from the beginning when you're developing or designing or deploying a system, and continuously monitor it and stay ahead of the threat. So we created this TIPPSS model. I consider it the new cybersecurity paradigm: trust, identity, privacy, protection, safety, and security. We're first deploying it in connected healthcare from a standards, as we work on a standard perspective, and then beyond. I've already spoken to the National Institute of Standards and Technology about, grounding it in the healthcare side, and then taking it more broadly through autonomous vehicles, transportation systems, smart grid, infrastructure, areas where we really have to stay on top of the threats and reduce the risk. Trust is about only allowing designated people or services to have device or data access. Identity is validating the identity of the people, services, and things who are trying to get into the system to see if you can trust them, and you don't let them in if you can't. Privacy is ensuring device, personal, and sensitive data is kept private. Protection is to protect the devices and the users from harm: physical, digital, financial, and reputational harm. Safety for devices, infrastructure, and people, and maintaining security of data, devices, and people. So there's a lot to do here. This will be a problem probably forever, and so we need to make sure we're addressing it. So I've been working with a number of organizations, especially IEEE, to enable more awareness about the need for trust and security and interoperability. These are a couple of articles that we published in 2018 together: Enabling Trust and Security Tips for IoT and Wearables and Medical Interoperability, the Evolving Frontier. And we continue to work on it. From that, we had a pre-standards effort where we developed this TIPPSS framework for clinical IoT data and device interoperability. And this isn't meant as just a framework. This isn't the answer, but these are all the things you have to think about, or most of them. So you have to think about the user experience and the user interface, whether it's a patient or provider, like a doctor, payers, regulators, pharma. The devices, there's a user interface for devices too, device to device, and research. The applications themselves, whether it's precision medicine or other health apps, real-time medical device actuation, the use of artificial intelligence and machine learning in applications and advanced analytics. Integration models, including other standards. As they say, the beauty about standards is there are so many of them, but these are some of the standards used in healthcare: FHIR, HL7, JELO, SNOMED, LOINC, ISO 11073, and others, and there could be more. And then application programming interfaces and software development kits, as well as other technologies, distributed ledger technologies. A lot of people think of it as blockchain, but there are other DLTs, the connection layers, the data ingest and management, and different data sources and targets, which are just growing all the time. And on the right here, up and down in the green, if you can see the green, is where we look at the TIPPSS elements: security, encryption, federated identity management, key management, user management, authentication, privacy, compliance, governance for hardware, software, service, applications, and services. So I would say any SaaS system you put in place, I would suggest you have a chief technology officer or CIO who's worrying about this for you, and then see what you need to do to keep things safe and mitigate risk to your clients, your shareholders, everybody. So we then developed this standards working group, which I chair with IEEE and Underwriters Laboratory. And we have over 250 people in it from 22 countries and 6 continents. It includes device manufacturers, technologists, the National Institutes of Health, providers, payers, patient advocates, regulators, pharmaceutical companies, electronic medical record and electronic health record vendors, researchers, academics, startups, whole bunches of people. And we have these 7 subgroups, and together we're building this standard. So we've also been doing publications on this to increase awareness for the need of TIPPSS. And so these are 2 books that I'm editor-in-chief for, published with Springer. Women Securing the Future with Tips for Connected Healthcare just came out in June of 2022, and Women Securing the Future with Tips for IoT. In each of these, I have 17 other women authors. It's in the Women in Engineering and Science series, and everything from lawyers, judges, technologists, encryption experts, all sorts of people that can help you understand the need for tips for IoT and connected healthcare. We also increasing awareness on the need for responsible data science, including security and privacy, as we discussed, in ethics. One of our collaborators, who's on the advisory board at the Northeast Big Data Hub, Julia Stoyanovich, is a professor at NYU, New York University, in New York City, in New York, in the USA. And she has actually published a number of comic books. And they're not like Disney comic books. They're really about artificial intelligence and machine learning. So it uses a comic book type of theme, but it actually delivers real information about AI, bias, ethics. They're available in multiple languages: English, Spanish, Portuguese, and a couple of other languages. You can see here Fairness and Friends, all about that bias and who lives, who dies, who decides. Very interesting. These are real topics in responsible data science. So at the Northeast Big Data Hub and the programs we run, including the COVID Information Commons, the National Student Data Corps, our cybersecurity risk conferences, we're also very focused on the Sustainable Development Goals of the UN. I recently spoke on a World Information Transfer webinar. They work closely with the UN. And so these are some of the goals we have for the planet, that the UN has helped us think about for a number of years now, from good health and well-being to quality education, gender equality, clean water, responsible consumption, sustainable cities, economic development, climate action, and then partnerships to get toward the goal. So we're focused on all of these areas, and we're delighted to be able to bring this to everybody around the planet who wants to participate. And if you'd like, feel free to sign up for the Northeast Big Data Hub mailing, join the COVID Information Commons community, the National Student Data Corps, use our online asynchronous resources, share them with your friends, your children, your grandchildren, your parents, anyway, colleagues, and join our events. You can be a volunteer if you want with the Hub and have a great impact. If you are a data science person or want to be one, you can sign up to be a mentor for the National Student Data Corps, or a mentee if you want somebody to mentor you, and reach out to us anytime if we can help. So that's what I wanted to share today. It was kind of a broad swath, but this was really a view of how you can learn about some of these advanced technologies and then how you can use them for good. So that's what I wanted to share with you all today, and I hope that was helpful.
Thank you so much for that, Florence. That was awesome. That was a lot of great information, and man, you are a busy person.
I am.
So I will leave the floor open for the next 5 or 10 minutes. While we wait for some questions to come in, let me ask you, where can people connect with you, or what platforms do you prefer for people to connect you
LinkedIn
up?
is the best place. They can follow me on Twitter. I'm easy to find, Florence Hudson. Not too many
Awesome.
of us. And LinkedIn is probably the best place.
Okay, great. So one question I've been asking all the speakers is, what are your predictions for 2023 in your space?
Gosh, I have so many spaces. So the leverage of artificial intelligence and machine learning is really increasing. The risk associated with it is increasing because it's being used more and more. And this is an example of a technology that, just maybe 5 or 10 years ago, some people were saying, oh, it's never going to take off, that AI stuff. We've been talking about it since the 1950s. I'm like, yeah, well, guess what? It's here. It's in your
I said that in
phone.
50 years.
Yeah, right? You know, and so we're at this stage now where technologies that we didn't think were real are real. And so what we're going to see is the use of them, but also the need for a risk mitigation strategy of how they're being used.
Yep.
So I think that's going to become more and more important at the board level, at the technology level, at the city level, at the human level. So I think that will be happening more and more, whether it's all the technologies I talked about, Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, machine learning, um, augmented reality, virtual reality, extended reality. Nobody
Yep.
wants the current reality, so let me find a new one, right? Um, as well as, you know, big data, and things like that. So I think there's going to be more opportunity to learn about them, to have a career related to those. So there are new opportunities for people who want to retool themselves for data
Yep.
science. There was one gentleman who's getting his MBA at Southern University in the US, who's a serial entrepreneur. He's been in business probably 15, 20 years. And he said, I want to retool myself for data science, but I'm not technical. I said, okay, well, go into data visualization, because as a business leader, he's been a CEO. I said, you know what the data is telling you, and you have an instinct about that. So you can work on that side of it, hire someone that can manage and analyze the data for you, but you'll have an instinct, a spidey sense, so to speak, on what's right or
Yep.
what's wrong. And so there's an opportunity to retool yourself and learn and get into these new markets. I think that's going to be happening. And many other things, as we know. I think I was really heartened. I was mentioning that I'll be speaking in April in Chicago at the HIMSS conference, which is the Healthcare Information Management System Society. During COVID, they had 20,000 people come to their conference. When it's not COVID, they usually have 40 or 50,000 people. Yeah, and it's health information management. So it's doctors, it's IT people, it's security people, it's all sorts of people. So I was very heartened. We were very happy that they asked us to present about our standard on clinical IoT and TIPPSS. But I was looking through all the other presentations, so many great presentations about leverage of quantum and AI and ML, all of these technologies that really have a foothold now. Even though they're old, they're not really mature yet.
Yep.
Even though they may be 72, if they started in 1950, let's say, they're not really mature yet, and the environment is changing. There's a lot more data now.
Yep.
Back then when we were doing AI, it was data in an enterprise, in a government, in an industry, it was like behind a firewall. Now it's data all over the place, right? There's social
Yep.
media data, there's IoT data, there's Twitter data, there's fake data, all sorts of stuff. So there's a lot to worry about, but there's
Mhm.
even more of an opportunity to deploy these new technologies. So I think we're going to see that increasing.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I definitely think a lot of my family works in the healthcare space, and I'm like the only entrepreneurial person, I guess, that came out of our family, you can say, besides my dad. But one thing that's really interesting, because I'm always posing, I'm always talking about the different startups I'm working with. I run an accelerator here in Dallas, so I get to see and then interact with amazing people like yourself. So like technology is moving so fast, but I feel like the healthcare industry and even like the auto industry and insurance industry, they're so far behind. So one thing that through my experience with working with like ChatGPT and some of these other AI tools, is that like you can almost get yourself into like a information overload, because like, yes, it's very accessible and you can get information, but then like you almost get hit with a plethora of information, then you don't even know how to consume it. So like having some sort of like filtering warehouse system per se, and that's something I really focus in the early stage startup space, and letting, founders that I advise or just companies that I'm working with, like creating these processes, right? Because at scale, what you're doing with 10 customers or 100 customers is not the same that you can do with, 1,000, 100,000, even a million customers. So do you see some sort of like regulation that might come in with all this technology within, like specifically within the healthcare and information management system, just because of all like the HIPAA and all that stuff?
Yeah, so I don't know if you saw recently that the Pope actually, as in Rome, like the Pope of the Catholic Church, actually brought together leaders regarding AI and data ethics. That was just last week. I know Dario Gil, who I used to work with when I was at IBM, He leads research now, and he's in the picture with the Pope, where they were talking about AI and ML and the human ethics related to it. Um, so there's more of a focus on it. The EU has always been ahead on this, with GDPR as an example,
Mhm.
the privacy regulations. We're building this TIPPSS standard as an international standard for trust, identity, privacy, protection, safety, and security. Each country gets to regulate what they want to, but we're looking to build a technical standard so people can improve TIPPSS to make it safer for the data, the devices, and the humans. And that's why we also had a technology and policy discussion in that IEEE workshop series I mentioned. You have to look at the technology and the policy. Policymakers get to make their own policy, and there isn't really a global policy regulator at this point. Maybe that'll happen. Maybe, as we go intergalactic, maybe they'll decide the Earth is small enough that it can have a policy regulator. Um, but I think there's more interest in looking at what needs to be done. If you want to look at LinkedIn, Dario Gil actually wrote about his time with the Pope and the discussions that they had and what's going on about
Amazing.
AI and ML and ethics. I know that a few years ago, I went to Princeton undergraduate, and Sonia Sotomayor also did. She's a Supreme Court justice in the US. And so we were at an event together at Princeton, and I asked her, what do you think with all this new technology and Internet of Things and all this stuff? What do you think about the security and privacy issues? And I told her, I'm working on security. And she said, well, I'm glad you're working on security because I'm working on privacy because I don't think our citizens realize the human rights they're giving up when they
Yeah.
use these technologies. So there's a lot of interest in it. She's written some, opinions on it, as a Supreme Court justice in the US. There are lawyers involved in this. There's a chief privacy officer role. There's chief information security officer role. So there's more interest in it, but every country gets to regulate as they wish, as you know. There are
Got it.
some countries where you can't use Google Docs. You can't, everyone gets to, as I say, your country, your rules.
Wow.
Um, but there is more need to focus on it. And so I'm heartened, as I said, that I see a lot more evidence that people are looking at quantum and AI and ML and security and privacy. And when we talk about this tip standard, people who understand the problem, they have like laser beam eyes, like, we really need that. We're glad you're doing it. I'm like, oh, I agree with you. We really need it. And we specifically branded it, even though I worked with a guy with IEEE to kind of create it. We branded it IEEE so it couldn't be like one company could say, this is mine. I'm like, no, everybody gets to do this. So this is a global standard. That's
Amazing.
the goal here. And everybody, it's a Rosetta Stone. Everybody gets to touch it. And
Almost
then
like
what
an
we
association type?
Yeah, kind of, yeah. It's like a technical community,
Yeah.
that supports, the needs of the humans and the manufacturers and the devices, so that we also plan to teach people about TIPS. What I usually tell the working group, that we're working on with TIPS, I say, my vision is that once we get, God willing, the standard out the door, is that so 3 to 5 years from now, when it's in the devices and the data and the providers and the doctors and the students and everyone knows about it. We teach them that there'll be some little girl at the doctor, and the doctor is going to try to give her an insulin pump, and she's going to look up at him and say, "Does it have tips?" So we want to create demand for it too, because I often tell the story. I'm a geek, right? So I knew I wanted to be an aerospace engineer when I was 3. Long story, but when I was little, I would look for the UL sticker on the electric cords, the Underwriters Laboratory sticker,
Interesting.
because the tag, because I knew that meant it was safer. And so
Wow.
then what I want to teach people is if it has a tip something or other, that it's safer. Because just like anywhere, when you go into a city or an area, like, walk down this street, don't walk down that street. You have to self-regulate and protect yourself. And so if you know what to ask for, then it can help protect you too. So that's our goal, is to try to keep the humans alive and safe.
That's amazing, and I definitely, any way that I can be of a resource and champion what y'all are doing, it's amazing. I think it's very much overdue and needed. So I really appreciate you sharing that with us and all your insight, all the amazing information. It's been an absolute pleasure. I want to be courteous of your time. So, any last parting words before I let you go?
No, I hope this was valuable for some of you. If you want to connect, feel free to connect on LinkedIn. If you want to join the Northeast Big Data Hub, everybody's welcome. Just go to our website, and good luck. And I hope
Awesome. Thank
everybody
you very
has a
much,
good year.
Florence. I hope you have a great day.
Thank you, you too. Thanks for having me. Bye-bye, everybody.
Absolutely.